Okay, so we are taking the soil samples to check one for the acidic level or the pH level of the soil itself. We are not very happy with the soil, how it is, because it's a bit muddy and it has a lot of insects in there. You can see we've just gotten a saka which is not so great for the snail. So we are going to take samples of that and then see how best we can treat them against okay, so we are taking soil samples. Okay, so for these worms, the earthworms, they are good. The earthworms are good, but you can see another insect there which is not so good. So the soil is rich, is good, but the aeration level is down. It means that it needs more oxygen. It needs other insects, but they cannot burrow because of the compact nature. So it is too compact for them, like it is too wet and muddy for them. So we'll check the soil pH and then we'll do a physical inspection of it as well. We can see some snail sort of young ones that did not really go so well. So it means they laid eggs, but and these are snail shells, meaning that a few of them had their shells cracked as well. So by studying the soil, you can actually know a lot about the farm practices just here. There are saka babies in there as well, meaning that the place is crawling with them. So you can see them, and there will be a lot of leeches here as well, because leeches and centipedes are basically neighbors. And then you can see a lot of the snails, meaning that there are a lot more mortalities here, and the people do not tread very lightly. You can see just this soil, we have a lot of the shells here. You can see a shell and another shell here, meaning they've lost a lot of snails. And this is another larvae of the saka. So there's a lot of them in the soil, a few generations of them. And there's one here as well. So there's one generation. There was a smaller one we saw earlier and the larger one we saw before. And this is the very tiny one there. There it went. So meaning there are a lot of infestation here, which we have to treat. So we will need to do a treatment, fumigation, and do a barrier, because the structure here, you can see here, other insects can burrow through easily, and you can see ants all the way, which they are not supposed to have access. So if ants can have access, it means all the other insects can have access. And building with merging the net with the blocks is a bad idea, a real bad idea. But that is what we are here. We are here to mitigate certain measures from here. Okay, and the snails too. Okay, this is dead. Okay, this is a dead snail, but and then we have debris. We have a few of the snails, but this is Feluca or Fulica and not Marginata or the AA or the AM. And these are pests. There are some slugs here as well, which means they need full treatment of their soil. Full treatment. And from the decaying part of the cocoa leaves, it tells you that it has been here for a while, and there's not so much cover. You can see around it's almost open, so the snails are not really enjoying the location. Sort of, they are not really enjoying their habitat. So that is why we're here. So we're going to take soil samples about 2 different places, and then we know. So we have to aerate the place. See, this place is muddy. If snails are to lay and they come to this soil, they cannot dig. It's all muddy. So we have to treat the soil as well, so that we get ample. And the banana or the plantain they have is not the good type. That is why we use dwarf bananas. So this is going to harm the net, because it's going to grow taller and taller and harm the net. So we have to treat the pen, each pen by pen, disinfect, re-establish, and do a lot of treatment measures. Okay. And the plantain itself is diseased, so it will also cause a few other problems as well. Well, it's just basically open. The snails are not feeling the protectiveness of the pen as they are supposed to. So you see that they will either find places like under the rocks or under the leaves, other leaves, which they are not even supposed to do. So the cocoa leaves should have been enough for them to be able to hide under. But like I said, that's why we're here. So let's take a few samples. So always we do a physical inspection first, and then we send it to the lab for chemical analysis as well. Most places they do a lot of pesticides. You know, they themselves do pesticides, and that is always bad for. And then you can see there's this snail type, which is called Afidba. It's not really the normal type of snail. These are pests as well. They worry the snails. They compete against food and sometimes try to sort of mate with the snails. And there are a lot of them here as well. You can see one. This is one, and there's one here as well. You can see a lot of them, which is not good for the farmer. So the place is also clay. You can see a lot of clay, meaning that snails cannot lay eggs into this, even if they want to. Even if they dig, they're able to dig, there will be tendency for the eggs to be stuck. They are either stagnant with water or with other stuff. So let's just go and do our pH level test first. So this is one sample from one side. So we take another sample from another side just to check. And sometimes if you put the samples there for a while, you see larvae in them. That is larvae of other insects that hatch even after we pick the samples. So you can see something here. When you want to know that your soil is excellent, even the tubers or the plants that are supposed to go inside are coming outside, and their roots are sticking out because the soil is not very conducive. So they are forced to bring their food, which should have been inside, originally outside for lack of good soil. So the place is very clayey, and you can find a lot of dead snails everywhere. A lot of dead snails. A lot of dead snails. This is bad. Okay, so you can find dead snails, shells, because these guys are supposed to stay indoors. So yes, this is a typical example. See, you see the sakasaka there. You see the other insects trying to attack the snails, and then you see the pest I was telling you about. These are not their own shells or eggs. These are pests, other snails that are pests to the original snails. And you can see this one, it was injured, but it has healed because of the line here. And then they are lacking calcium, so the calcium is responsible for the tiger stripes that they are supposed to have, but this is not consistent. You can see that the tiger stripes are faded because one, they are exposed to the sun, two, they are also not really having a lot of calcium. So that is an example of a deficient snail. And you can see it got hurt here. It has a scar, and the other snails are eating most part of the other insects are eating most part of it, you know. So these ones, when it is dry weather, the pest snails attach themselves to the bigger snails to take moisture from them, which also depletes them of moisture, which is also very bad. So most of the trees here are not really beneficial to the snails, with the exception of a few snails, a few like the cocoyams and the plantain. If the plantain was the dwarf type, that would have been excellent. These trees are all not beneficial, they're just taking space. So the cement work is also one other option. Come closer, let's look at this. So with this cement work, what happens is that when the snails are depleted of calcium, there's the cement is also having a chemical called gypsum, which tastes and sort of smells like calcium, but it is not calcium. So the snails go around eating the down portion of the cement work, which will end up so this is one of them, which will end up killing them. So I'm sure the culprit for this death would be eating of the gypsum from the wall. So what we do is that if you want to do a wall, there has to be enough cement and it has to be a smooth finish so that the snails cannot eat them. Because if you are checking by the wall, you will find a lot of the snails. This died not so long ago because it still has juices in it. It still has the stench in it because they are by the wall. They are trying to hide from the direct sunlight. They feel that they are not protected. That is one aspect. And they are also not getting a lot of calcium, so they are eating from the wall. This is also dead, and the culprit can be one, either this, the sakasaka, or the wall that it has eaten. This died not so long ago. It has the carcass in there as well. So if you are checking by the wall, you will know that there's a lot you can learn from the farm by just looking at the construction. That is why we are asking you, we are pleading with you that if you need to invest in a structure like this, look for a credible company. This could have been done with just the paper, the plastic we call paper. We put it in a few meters in, and then we put the soil on. What that does is that it prevents other insects from burrowing in or out, and it keeps the soil fresh and fluffy, sort of aerated most of the time. So if you are to check by this side, you find a lot of the snails. They will not stay in the middle because they are drawn to the calcium. Their food is depleted of calcium, and they feel they need to take the calcium or the gypsum from the cement, which they think is the calcium, but it is not. And then they eat that and they get poisoned. So we should be very careful what materials we use. That's why we use 100% plastic for the down, and then up we use the net. So this is a good material, but that is a bad material. For you to mitigate this, we have to plaster it smooth, put a lot of cement in the mixture so that when it sets, it becomes very solid. The snails cannot eat it. It becomes like tiles, basically smooth, so snails cannot eat or penetrate through that. But if these are rough like this, they will have small sections they can eat from, and then that can poison them. So let's go test our soil first, then we'll come and write a report on what is actually wrong with the other setup. So we go around it, and then we'll give you a view of the farm for you to see how best that is, you know. But like I said, there are symptoms. These plants also talk. They tell us a lot, because it tells you about it cannot store its food, that is the roots or the tubers, in the floor, but it is showing. So you can see a symptom there and a symptom here as well. It all tells you that the soil is not conducive for even plants, much more snails. So this is also not the type of cocoyam we are supposed to have. But this is a cocoyam, and even the cocoyam is still giving out its fruit upwards. So the soil, and then we come back.
Go.
Okay, so we are first doing a visual analysis, which due to our expertise in dealing with soil for a longer time, we are able to know whether something is very wrong or yes. So we pick a soil sample like this, and then you can evidently, clearly from the start see that there's a lot of clay. So this is clay. You feel it is clay. That means that it will absorb more water, keep more water on top, make it muddy, and then stick together. So there's a little bit of other soil on top, that is the loamy. So this is a typical example of a clay loamy soil. So let's test the pH level of the soil, and then we can start from there. So we take the pH level. So we are getting the reference base. Let's do another.
Go.
Okay, so we are testing the temperature of the soil, but it is not because a soil that has a lot of clay in there should be a lot more colder than 32 degrees, which means it is almost dry. So it means there's still not so much soil moisture in the setup. So we switch it to the pH level. Okay, so we'll put it on the pH.